Upside Down in the Middle of Nowhere, Chapter 10. Rain was coming down sideways, and thunder and lightning filled the sky, and the wind had a mind of its own. There was still a hint of light making its way from the outside world, but the usual golden colors of Mamma's living room in the late light of the day was missing, and a stillness and gray had took over the whole house. Mamma never said one word when she swept up the broken glass and dirt and pieces of her favorite hanging plant into the dustpan that Mima held for her. The little ones didn't even wander in there and get in the way. Somehow they just knew to stay put and not be whiny. Daddy and Georgie had stretched thick, silvery tape crisscrosses on all the windows while I laid out all the papers that Mima gave me. She showed me how to put them down for crickets, since she wasn't going to be able to take her outside to do her business. Miss had herself stuffed into a corner of the couch. She looked lost and uncomfortable without Uncle T-Bone to hang on, and her eyes were fixed on the floor, and her shiny knees moved up and down as fast as her feet could bounce. I almost went and sat next to her, but I went into the kitchen instead. Mama was sitting at the table with her head in her hands, and Mima was keeping herself busy wiping down the counters with a rag. The trash bag covering the hole where the window used to be was flapping around and poofing like it was going to tear loose any minute, and I couldn't take my eyes off it. Mama, can I have a water? Never looked up at me. Just one. Her tired voice got lost in the sound of the storm and the noisy trash bag window. Make it last, she said. I took the bottle off the table. Here, I said, holding it out in front of me. Miss slowly stopped staring at the floor, and her gaze met mine, and I froze, and her caramel-colored eyes were sad, scared, soft, and sweet. I blinked and swallowed. I thought you might want a water or something. She took the bottle and pressed it against her chest. Thank you, Armani. This is so thoughtful of you. And she smiled, but her eyes filled with tears. I'm so scared. She stared at me in a way that sucked me in. If anything happens to T-Bone, I don't know what I'll do. Tears fell from both of her eyes at the same time. Her crying made my eyes sting, and I sat down beside her on the couch, not knowing if I could touch her or not. Finally, I laid my hand on her shoulder and patted it a couple times. He'll be okay, was all I could think to say. She fell into me and went into a full-blown ugly cry, all but suffocating me with her tangerine hat. When the front door slammed open and a soaking wet Uncle T-Bone fell in. Listening to Uncle T-Bone go on about the ride to Uncle Elvin's and how he had to practically carry the grown man into the house in the pouring rain turned my stomach, and I gathered up my new puppy and went to my room. Of course, Celie followed. I didn't mind because I knew she'd let me be. Quicker than Mima could crack a nut, Celie had one of her books out. She sat down on the floor and folded her legs up under with her book spread across her lap. The curtains above Celie's head fluttered the tiniest bit, even though the windows was closed up good and tight. It made me nervous. I plopped face down on my bed with Cricket, and I ran my finger up and down the space between her eyes and down on top of her short little round nose. She stared at me with her shiny jet black eyes and thumped her wagging tail against my arm. Every couple of seconds, she'd stare at the window and whimper, cocking her head to the side. I wonder if she was hearing all that same whistle as me. I was admiring the beauty of her when there was a quiet knock on the door, and I opened it a couple of inches, and Georgie's wide, fat nose peered in me. Armani, can I come in? No, I said with no energy. Georgie walked in anyway. He sat on the edge of the bed, and I scooted over, making sure no part of my brother was touching me. Cricket left my side and crawled up on Georgie's lap, and he bent his face down and licked me on the chin. He laughed and petted her. She went to licking faster all over his face. I'd seen enough. All I could do was pray that Cricket hadn't picked up some dreaded disease from that ugly boy's face. I sat up. Come here, Cricket, I called with my baby talk voice. Come here. I clicked my tongue a couple of times. Cricket hopped over to me and sniffed my hand, all while wagging her stumpy tail. Then she turned around and hopped back to Georgie, picking right up with the licking. She likes me, Georgie said. He kissed my puppy on the top of her head. Whatever, I mumbled. I folded my arms across my chest, and Celie smiled at me over the top of her book. Anyway, Georgie said, still playing with Cricket, I just wanted to tell you that I thought it was cool the way you stuck up for Tay-Tay. What? I said. Georgie jumped to his feet, dancing on his tippy toes around in a circle, boxing the air. I rolled my eyes and unfolded my arms. In a really high, squeaky voice, he said, My name's Amani Curtis. Mess with me or my cuz, and I'll kick your butt. Georgie laughed at his own self like he was the funniest person alive. A boom of thunder shook the house. At the exact same time, a huge, bright flash of lightning lit up my room like someone was shining in the spotlight. The three of us stopped breathing and stared at each other, and Celie grabbed her book sack and leapt out of her bed. Georgie cleared his throat. He reached over and gave Cricket a quick belly rub. Anyway, he said. Yeah, anyway, I said, just because. Well, happy birthday, sis, before I realized what he was fixing to do, and that crazy boy bent down and kissed me on my cheek. I swatted at him, but Georgie moved too quick, and he was out the door bouncing off the walls in the dark hall. What an idiot, I grumbled. I threw myself back on the bed, and Celie snuggled up next to me and opened her book sack. She put her book inside and pulled out her journal and fluffy feather pen. I lay there with Cricket feeling sticky and hot, and the room got darker and darker as the gray light of the day faded. And I watched my sister's pen move across the page of her journal, and I couldn't hear the scratch the sound of that her writing usually made on the account of whistling winds and pouring rain pounding down on her roof. But the rain and wind couldn't cover up the cracking sound that made me and my sister jump out of our skin. It was like God was tearing the whole world in half in one long rip.